No gravity, no atmosphere. An endless vacuum of radiation, dust, magnetic fields, and amazing celestial bodies. Where Earth ends and the universe begins. Space, the final frontier. Astrophysicist Dr. Susanna Randall is training to take on the stars.
The mission hasn't really changed from the beginning. The mission is to send the first female German astronaut into space. And it is actually quite interesting. I mean, I've always described myself as a feminist, so I've always been very much for equality and saying, women should be equal to men and men should be doing more of this. But I never realized until I started with this program how extremely women are still being discriminated against in Germany in particular.
Susanna Randall has space in her soul and stars in her eyes. A scientist, she's fighting 21st century patriarchy so she can touch the sky. Susanna Randall wants to be the first German woman in space.
So I was always just fascinated by space. And I'm not sure why, because no one in my family is in the remotest interested in space. What I do remember is when I was about 8 or 9, and this is really a vivid memory. It's one of these memories, I think, that you make and then you repeat to yourself so many times that they become really ingrained in you. So I was sitting at our breakfast table and we get this newspaper, the Kölner Stadtanzeiger. And I remember seeing this really bad black and white photo in the newspaper, and it showed the surface of Phobos. And Phobos is one of the moons of Mars. And I just remember looking at this and I was like, wow, this spaceship has actually gone there and it's managed to take photos of the surface. And that was a moment for me when it just clicked. It's not only there, but we can also go there. And from that point on, I really became fascinated in earnest with space.
Susanna watches the SpaceX launch. Maybe one day she'll be on board.
I forgot the peanuts. They're good luck. It's customary at NASA mission control to always have a bowl of peanuts for good luck for the astronauts. 7, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I was never that good at maths or physics at school till really, really late. I mean, I was much more the artsy, musical, linguistic type, and those were the things that were encouraged and that I was good at as well. And actually, I had a bit of a dilemma because I was fascinated by space and I knew I wanted to do something with space, but I always thought I'm not good at maths or physics and that's just not going to happen for me. And that was really how I spent most of my youth. And then I got a lucky break in a way in 10th grade. So when I was about 16, I guess, 15 or 16, I had a really motivated physics teacher. And somehow from one week to the next, I went from being at best mediocre at physics to being really quite good because I was interested, because I was motivated to also give my best and to work at it. And all of a sudden I realized that these categories that people put you in, you can't do this, but you're good at this and you're bad at that. They're just categories the other people want to make up. They're not necessarily a true reflection of your own abilities. A lot of people will say, oh, you've got a PhD, you must be so smart. I'm like, no, I've got a PhD because I'm pig-headed, because, I bulldozed myself through this because I forced myself to stick at it, not because I'm so smart. I mean, it's really, and that's what a PhD does for you. It really, I think, forms your capacity to prevail against the odds.
Susanna has taken an unconventional path to become an astronaut. She's not connected to an international space agency like ESA, the European Space Agency. Rather, she's part of a private organization called Die Astronautin, which hopes to send Germany's first female astronaut into space. That's why she's kept her job at the European Southern Observatory. That means she's training alongside her full-time job.
basically, in my position at ESA, my job is kind of split. I'm an ARC astronomer. ARC is the ALMA Regional Center. So ALMA is the telescope itself, the antennas that are in Chile, and we have this regional center in Garching. So my main job is supporting the other astronomers that are using ALMA in Europe. And then a bit decoupled from that is my own personal research. And then once or twice a year, I'll actually go to the telescope.
The European Southern Observatory, or ESO, sits 5,000 meters above sea level on the Chajnantor Plateau in the Chilean Andes.
That's part of my role for ALMA, and I will take observations again for other people. So ALMA is a telescope that is purely in service mode, which means that the people that want the observations don't actually travel themselves, but they have people like me that travel for them, that know the telescope, that know the technical details, that then execute the observations, make sure the data are okay, and then send them the data.
The ALMA telescope is part of one of the highest astronomical observatories in the world. This is one of the world's driest places, too.
Hola, buenas tardes. Yeah. Gracias.
At this altitude, Susanna has to carry oxygen for the drive.
This is kilómetro 21. Vehículo 21 al kilómetro 21 sin novedades.
From up here, the astronomers have an incomparable view of the stars. But the working conditions are tough.
Hola. Buenos días. Gracias. ¿Ando? ¿Manejando? Y ahora me siento como...
Susanna has to undergo a medical checkup when she reaches the top of the mountain. The observatory is so high up that Susanna's blood oxygen has to be monitored and the film team has to carry oxygen.
¿Ellos son visitados?
Sí.
ALMA is a state-of-the-art telescope that studies light from the darkest depths of our universe. The telescope consists of 66 high-precision antennae spread over 16 kilometers. ALMA is the world's most powerful telescope for observing molecular gas and dust, the essential components of stars, planets, and galaxies.
From the engineering side, of course, ALMA is incredible. We have 66 antennas that are working together. There were a lot of problems at the beginning to do with the altitude as well. There's snowstorms, there's high winds. So in terms of engineering, it's a huge feat. But for me, really what's spectacular up there is probably the natural landscape. There's nothing growing at 5,000 meters, right? It's really like being on another planet. You have trouble breathing at the beginning, so you have to get used to the altitude. It's really just an experience that's completely outside of your comfort zone or your normal environment.
Few places on Earth resemble Mars or the Moon as much as the geography surrounding the ALMA telescope.
It was always in the back of my mind that I would like to be an astronaut, but it's not something you actively pursue, right? You have to wait for a position to be advertised, basically. So in, I think it was 2008, I saw an advert that ESA, the European Space Agency, that they were looking for a new generation of astronauts. I had just moved to Munich. I had just finished my PhD a couple of years before, so I didn't have very much work experience, but I decided anyway I would apply because these kind of job advertisements come out every 15 years or so. So it was really a unique opportunity. And I applied. Unfortunately, I didn't get very far because basically I was very naive. I just didn't prepare myself. I made it to the first round, which only 10% of people made it into at all. So, I mean, that was already an achievement. But rather than say, okay, I'm going to give it my best shot, I just kind of thought, oh, it's like an intelligence test. I can't really do much. And I'll just see. And then, of course, I flunked the tests completely. So I really berated myself for many, many years. I was really upset with myself that I just threw away that chance, really. In 2016, I saw this advert on Spiegel Online, which is one of the big German online newspapers that I tend to read. I saw they're looking for the first female German astronaut.